your biggest job to date?
Ooh, biggest job to date. Oh, you actually helped me with
That
this
was
one.
that one, yeah.
Yeah, so biggest job to date was around 13.7 by the time we got done.
What is up, guys? This is Tristan, and today I've got a very special guest with us. It's Brandon. He's an 18-year-old that started up a extremely profitable landscaping business. We're going to go over how he started, the ins and outs of it, and how you could potentially start. But Brandon, before we start, just introduce yourself to the audience and who you are.
My name is Brandon Wenzel. I grew up in a town around Dallas. I went to high school here, played football, baseball, all 4 years of high school. I started my business during COVID because I had nothing better to do, and it's kind of led me to the point that I'm at right now.
No doubt, man. And you're about to go to college and everything like that, which is awesome. And we'll get to that in a quick second. But the first question I got for you, man, is like doubters. And everyone's got the doubters, especially you being a young guy. How are you able to overcome these doubters and just go with it and just do it?
It actually relates back to middle school sports. When people say, you know, how do you like block out stuff like that, it's kind of like I ran cross country, and you know, you have to be super mentally tough, and you know, you might be dying on the first mile and you still have another mile and a half to go, whatever, and you just got to keep pushing through it. You just got to push past the people, and for me, mostly it was the people that I went to school with that didn't believe that I could do it, and you just got to be mentally tough and push through that and know that there's something at the end of the tunnel that not everybody gets to explore, especially in high school.
Right. And it's truly about what a man does instead of how he feels. And I always talk about a man does what he's supposed to do, not how he feels like, or not within these doubters and these external environment and external opinions of other people. It's kind of like you just kind of got to cut it off, and you know what's righteous for you. You know,
Exactly.
just pivoting. It motivated me, the doubters, but what else motivates you?
Honestly, when I first started, money motivated me.
Yeah.
And I think that's for a lot of people when they first start the businesses, you know, they're like, oh my, look at how much money I could make. And for me, honestly, being a freshman in high school and looking at my bank account, I remember the first $20 that I made, and I looked at that and I was like, wow, that's $20. And, you know, now it's like, you know, it's $20, but, you know, back then, like, that was one thing that I can honestly remember is cutting my first yard and the lady handing me a $20 bill and looking at that $20 bill and being like, wow, that's $20.
Yeah, and money is certainly a motivator. And at some point, and we're going to go into numbers and stuff, but money kind of excludes the fact of motivation as well.
Mm-hmm.
And doubters and trauma always speak about it just keeps pushing you, and it keeps pushing you and all the stuff. And is there anything else, like excluding money? Because I know that's a great startup stuff, but when you get to that point, which you've gotten to that point, what else motivates you and what keeps you at that state?
Being the best that you can be, honestly. For me too, especially now that I'm at that point to where, you know, I've grown my business. It's mostly for me is, you know, looking down and being like, wow, what else can I get into? Like, what else could I go and start trouble with? You know, it's constant. How else can I expand? What else can I put into it? You know, for instance, this year we got into installing turf, and while I didn't do the actual install, I subcontracted one of my old football coaches, and he came and he installed turf for us and showed us a lot about it and how it's supposed to be done, and he's got us on some of his jobs and that sort of stuff. So next year, hopefully we're doing turf installations and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the consistent pursuit of knowledge is like certainly just a big factor, and there's always something to keep learning about and keep going about just the business, about personal, everything. Like that growth mindset, it just allows you to propel past the normality of things. Just kind of pivoting back into the business structure, and we're going to talk some numbers here for you guys. Your initial budget to start the business?
$0.
How'd you do that?
So I actually had my stepmom post an ad on Facebook, and she was like, hey, my son needs work. He wants to come pick your weeds, do whatever. And so I actually started the business by showing up to somebody's house. I got dropped off. I took my dad's hand tools in the back of a SUV. My stepmom dropped me off and said, text me when you're ready for me to come pick you up. So I took all the shovels and the rakes and stuff that I had, and I went and I picked this guy's weeds all day.
How much was that job?
$120.
Yeah. So what did you do with that money?
That money, I saved a portion of it because I was going to be driving in the near future and I wanted to have a really cool looking Jeep. Yeah. And so I saved some of that money, and honestly, I saved the other part of that money and kept doing those little weed jobs, that sort of stuff, until I could afford to go and put that money into like real equipment to get started.
Right. So what was that first real equipment? What was that first purchase like, and how were your like emotions kind of making kind of a big boy purchase or just something like that, you know?
Yeah. So while I was picking weeds, my dad let me borrow his lawnmower and weed eater and blower. And so the next week after I did the weeds, we went and cut, I think, 5 yards for the week. And, you know, that right there in itself was like, I think, $150. Yeah. And so I took that money and the money from the next week and that one job, and I went out, and I remember because we had a really big yard, and I had to edge with a weed eater, and I was like, man, this sucks. So I went out and I bought a Steel FC56 stick edger, which is the homeowner version, and honestly, I was like, wow, that's awesome.
Right, and just kind of aggressively reinvesting back into it.
Exactly.
And it allows you to propel your business much greater at an exponential rate.
Yes.
And starting that at an early age and recognizing that's what I envy about you, dude, is like you're so young and you've been able to recognize that. How old were you at that point?
Oh, let's see. I was a freshman, so I was around 14 to 15.
Yeah, and you're 18 right now?
I'm 18 right now.
Yeah, so it keeps going, and recognizing that at an early age, this is what it takes to keep growing and keep doing this stuff. Taking money out of the emotional investment and turning it over into actually a transactional value into the business and allowing it to propel it exponentially, it gets the ball rolling, you know. And just to the audience members, like getting the ball rolling, what was that mindset kind of like just going into it, doing it, taking action, but how can they reciprocate that?
So honestly, the worst part about doing all landscaping was getting started. Yeah. Okay, it's awful. You sit there and, you know, I mentioned earlier, you look at your first $20 and you're like, wow, that's $20. But as you keep going, you realize, wow, I got to put this money back into it. I got to do this. And while it sucks at that time, and you know, you gotta keep pushing it in. You got to keep putting it in there, because while you don't see that profit, like most businesses don't see profits within the first 1 to 3 years, you know, it's all about having that mindset of you just got to keep going. You just got to keep putting into it, because you got to trust the process. And
there's beauty in the process, and Kobe always talks about this, is like enjoying the little things, enjoying the things that suck, you know, and like this is what hard feels like, and basically enjoying okay, this transaction sucks. I just earned $240 off of 2 weed picking jobs, and just being able to reinvest that and not see any of that initially is invisible, but knowing that it can propel your business forward. That's the true action taking as I see it. And I see it as a commonality amongst service-based businesses, is just going out there and doing it, even if the profit's not there initially, but you know that forecasting it and deferred gratification will take care of itself, you know? Yes. Monthly overhead.
Okay.
What are you spending on? Expenses, workers? Talk about that.
So on yards, it's me and a buddy, and I split the yards 60-40 with him, so I make 60% of the profits. That right there covers me on that extra 20%, covers me on gas, weed eater line, edger blades, certain repairs to the equipment, that sort of stuff. And that also gives me, because I spend maybe $50 a month on gas at the maximum. And, you know, for payroll wise, a week of doing yards makes us close to $1,000. I maybe pay out, like I said, $400 maybe. And so, you know, I'm making $600. You take out the 50 right there. On 1 week, I made $550, and that doesn't include the landscaping jobs that I have someone else going to do, or if I pay somebody else to go cut yards, or, you know, whatever it is. That's the bare minimum right there. That is we call it mailbox money. It's the money that shows up every single week, no matter what.
Right, and that's the biggest thing about building an asset, building a business is ultimately to get to that point where you're making passive income and you're making this mailbox money and allocating people into systems. Can you talk about building a team? Like, who do you look for? What characteristics do you look in these people?
In today's environment, it's really hard to find people. Nobody wants to work anymore. Yep. Nobody. It's way too easy to just live off of what other people give you. And so for me, I look for the people kind of like yourself who just want to get out there. I don't want to say like you don't care, but you don't care what it is. You know, whatever it is that's going to make you money, make you better, those are the people that I'm looking for. It's the people that, you know, I know that I can call on every single day and know that they're going to be there, know that they're going to do a good job, know that they're going to, you know, live by the same things that I live by and put in the same effort that I put into the company every single day.
So do you go about it in like an interview process with hiring people? Do you do that?
So honestly, there's good and bad to this.
Yeah.
I like to hire the people that I'm close with. For instance, one of my workers, Carter, he's been my best friend since sophomore year. I started the business a year without him, and then I met him in my Spanish class sophomore year. Yep. He and I hit it off, whatever. And since then, you know, he's been my right-hand man. You know, he makes small mistakes that, you know, high schoolers make. And that's just something that you got to see past because, you know, we're all learning. But for me, I like to hire the people that I know. And the only thing that you got to be careful of is mixing personal and work. Yeah. And
how do you do that? How do you mix personal and work? Because I've got a bad instance where basically I had hired a guy close to me. And I don't want to talk about it on this too much on this podcast, but basically it kind of destroyed the relationship a little bit. How do you differ personal business?
So when Carter and I first started working with each other, I told him, I was like, look, no matter what happens, we're going to be friends outside of this. But when you're on a job, I'm your boss. You have to show me the respect that I deserve. Absolutely. I hold your paycheck, that sort of stuff. Like, I'm not going to screw you over. You can't screw me over. You're working for me. You have to do what I tell you to do. And I might have to sit there and light you up for something that you do. Absolutely. And I'm going to have no problem doing it. But at the end of the day, as soon as we park the trailer and unhook, we're friends. Yeah. Like, it's not going to go past that. Yeah. The trailer unhooked, we're off the clock, whatever.
I think setting expectations beforehand, right?
Exactly.
And just being like, hey, look, I might get a little bit fiery. This is my business. This is what we do. So I'm demanding excellence. I'm demanding this. But after that, everything's done. We're cool. We're boys.
Exactly.
And setting the expectation beforehand, before hiring, before allocating people into positions. This is what I struggled at initially. And I was like, you've got to set the expectations of business and personal beforehand.
Exactly.
You know, and within hiring close friends, close individuals, because I know a lot of people are going to probably go out there and do that. Just set the expectation beforehand and be able to be extremely transparent, because honesty and the truth never lies, and that's the most gracious thing that you could do to another individual.
Exactly.
You know? Basically, so 2022 revenue and 2023 revenue. And before we start, if you can, hit that subscribe button. I'm posting a ton of value lately. Guys, I love you. Let's keep going.
So for 2022, we did, I want to say, right around $60,000 in sales, and that's gross sales right there. That is every single penny that I made without sending out payroll, all that sort of good stuff. And you know, that was obviously that was last year. My first year in business, I made $14,000, and I thought I was rich. And like I said, that's gross. So I didn't even make $14,000. That's just what the business brought in. But, you know, last year we did right around $60,000, and, you know, I was sitting there, I was like, wow, like what else could we do? And I saw that you last year, you hit it off pretty good in the beginning of the year with Christmas lights. Yep. And that was one thing that I got into the game late with. Yep. We only did 5 houses, and they were all brand new installs. We didn't know what we were doing. And one thing in business is that you're going to screw yourself. You're going to find a way to lose money. And that's part of it. You got to learn from that, whatever. My first job, I actually lost a crap ton of money on, and I did not take a paycheck at all, and I paid Carter out of the money that we had made the previous week. Yeah. And, that was that. But, that was one of those things that, like, found me some extra profit, because after that job, I was like, no, I need to charge triple this.
Absolutely.
And then we had that one job, and I know you remember this. I made you go out there and go get up on the roof of that one, because we got up there and we were like, oh, that's steep. And I couldn't get the ladder up there, whatever. So, so it was about learning. And, I mean, we took down that house that you put up. Yeah. And, we learned from that. We figured it out, and we moved on from there. So it's really just about figuring it out and,
Absolutely.
Finding new ways to have an income source.
Yeah. 2023 revenue. What are you expecting?
So 2023 revenue, we are going to be, if we continue and we double our sales, if not triple our sales with Christmas lights like we want to, we'll be over six figures. Yeah. And that's from 60,000 last year. So we're pushing over 40,000 extra this year.
Yeah. And what's been the flip, like the switch for you?
Honestly, this is going to sound awful, but it's been the fact that I didn't have to go to summer workouts for sports this year. And there's a lot of people that are like, well, sports are important, sports are this. But for me, sports aren't going to be there my entire life. And while you learn a lot from sports, like I mentioned earlier, learning from cross country and stuff, not having to go and work out at like 6 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock saved me, because past 12 o'clock it gets too hot to do anything.
It does. And that's a sacrifice. $40,000 extra to supplement a summer workout that's technically optional. It's kind of a no-brainer in my opinion. Yeah. And I get the dedication, the importance of sports, but what needs to be able to take. And I think, and I've seen a commonality amongst a lot of business owners, is that sacrifices and being able to sacrifice stuff will ultimately result in an increase in cash flow, revenue, everything. Yeah. Right? That was a sacrifice you had to take. What are some other sacrifices you had to take?
Ooh, there's a lot. A lot of the sacrifices I have to take, and I'm not going to get too into it, but I don't know who else was watching this, but, so I've had some customers that I've been on a personal relationship with where, we've been cool in the past, whatever, and they were like, hey, I want you to come out and do work and that sort of stuff. Honestly, the biggest sacrifices is giving up that relationship for business and figuring out that I can't be around those people anymore because of some things that happened via business. And, it sucks that, you have some of those people that, you were really cool with, you really looked up to, but they did some stuff that you just can't look past. And honestly, it's friendships is the biggest.
It is, and business is a different mindset when it comes to a lot of things, and a lot of people don't share that, especially at such a young age. And being able to basically distill and simplify it. Okay, do these people follow my value characteristics, and do they follow what I'm trying to get? And at some point, $40,000 extra, those sacrifices have to come into play, because a lot of people are distracted. A lot of people don't want the particular best for you. A lot of people don't want to see you succeed. And a lot of people are willing to kind of take that time away from the business in a sense. And it does suck and it does hurt. But at the same time, like I said at the beginning, a man does what he's supposed to do, not what he feels like doing. And that's the epitome of business. And if you're out there kind of looking to start a business, like, you're not going to have all the friends that you used to have. Just point blank. You're not. And that is a sacrifice. It's a pivotal sacrifice, especially at such a young age. But it's something you have to take, right? And in result, that's going to result in over $40,000 in revenue at least. So that's awesome. That's fucking awesome. I'm going to bleep that out. But that's awesome, dude. I'm like proud of you. But kind of pivoting again, right? Breaking even on your initial investment. So it had $0, but what about like whenever you purchase your first equipment? How long did that take you to break even on?
So I'll stop on the first piece of equipment, and I'm going to move to once I bought the whole setup, the whole mowers, all that sort of stuff. My first mower that I bought, that mower was $1,000. And, I bought it within 3 weeks of starting the business. and I was kind of spending money that I really didn't have to spend. And it took me, I remember, because I had 5 yards to start with. The next week I had 10, and the week after that I had 15. And I grew it until I had about 30 yards in that one summer. And thank you to my dad for helping me cut those because I couldn't drive yet. So, but I remember I had over $1,000 because I probably had $1,800 into that. But it took me 2 weeks to make that back. And my dad really was like, no, keep the money. You're going to be going to college in 3 years. You don't have to pay me. And he just charged me rent for using his equipment, which was even the more reason to go buy my own. And so as soon as I got rid of the rental charge, my dad was a free laborer. And, once I got into having, I had made back all my money, whatever, it was a straight profit from there. Yeah. And so $1,800 in that setup. And then the next year I was driving, and I had a Jeep, and you can't fit lawn equipment in a Jeep. I had to buy a trailer. Yeah. And buying a trailer, and I made that money back. I had that thing paid off within 2 weeks of buying it. Yeah. I told him, I was like, I'll pay it off over the course of a couple months. And we actually had a job that was it was the biggest job we'd ever had at the time. It was $1,000. Yeah, and we did that job and cut the yards for that week, made over $2,000, and I had that trailer paid off.
So how was it asking for $1,000 the first time? Right. And a lot of people struggle with this. A lot of people are like, damn, I can't even envision myself asking for $1,000. And I know the first time that I did it, it was scary, man. Mm-hmm. How was it for you?
So I actually went to my mom and I was like, hey, I've been working really hard recently. This is something that I need to do so that way I can go out and be profitable on my own. Last year, I made this amount of money. This year, I'm on course to make this, because I wanted to grow at a rate of 50% my second year. And I told her, I said, if I grow at a rate of 50%, I'm going to be making $25,000 to $30,000 this year. $1,000 will be pocket change at that time. Yeah. It really isn't, but, it is. And she was like, don't worry, I got you covered. And she went and she helped me get the trailer. The trailer was about $1,500, and I paid $500 on it. And we went and did that job and made $2,000 that week. And I was like, hey, here. Yeah. And she was like, already? And I was like, yeah. She was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, take it. I don't like to owe people. That's my biggest thing, is I don't like to owe people.
Yeah. How was that from, I guess from your parental experience within that, is them lending you some money, but being able to pay them back that quickly? What was their reaction like?
Why didn't you wait 2 weeks? No, I'm kidding. But no, they were like, wow, that's awesome. I'm so proud of you. At the time I was 16 years old and I was making $2,000 in a week. Yeah. That doesn't happen. Yeah, it doesn't. But at the same time, it's extremely tangible, and exactly. Anyone can do it too. It's we're not special here, guys. It's anyone can go out there and do it, but that just relentlessness to actually go out there and do it. Just kind of pivoting, whenever asking for the $1,000 for the customer. How was that? Was it just pretty simple? What was it? Are you talking about
that $1,000 job that you had?
Oh, I quoted it, and it's one of those. The biggest thing that I've learned in business so far, not really the biggest thing, but one thing that I have to do a lot now is change orders, because people will have you do something and they will keep adding to what they want you to do. Yeah. Biggest thing is to keep that. In document that, all that sort of good stuff. So that's a little piece of advice that doesn't really answer the question, but it's part of my answer. But we started that job. I quoted at $500. They doubled what they wanted us to do. And by the end of the job, I actually had a really hard time with this guy. He was like, no, I'm only going to give you $750. And I said, no. You owe me this amount of time. We worked this, and I sent him an invoice and all the above, and he just didn't want to pay it, that sort of stuff. Yeah. And I remember it took me 3 weeks. I showed up at his door every single day, knocked on his door every single day, and finally one day he answered. And honestly, one of my biggest mistakes, because I was a hot-headed 16-year-old, is having words with him in his front yard. Yeah. But at the end of the day, he paid up. Right. In full, and that was something I don't want to say I had to do, because I didn't have to do it that way. Right. But that was one thing that I had to do to make sure that I got the money that I deserved.
What would you recommend doing it the proper way then?
Honestly, the proper way is mailing letters. Yeah. Mailing an invoice that shows One, because it goes through the postal system. It proves that you have tried to reach out to this person at that address. Text messages, phone calls, anything that you can do to document what you have. And small claims court is honestly the best way, especially if you're just starting up. Like, we'll say that I had a business then, but I was still kind of the neighborhood kid, whatever, but that was like my gateway job into, doing more higher end residential landscaping. And small claims court, honestly, for people that don't pay is really beneficial when you're just starting out.
Absolutely. And that's I didn't know that about your first $1,000 job. It was a tough one, right? Like, just being able to stand up for yourself. And a lot of people struggle with that. Like, a lot of people struggle with, hey, like, it'd have been $750, whatever, I'll just take it, right? But you refused to do that.
Oh yeah.
Why did you refuse to do that? And then how can you stand up and give a piece of advice for these people to stay your ground?
Overhead. If you cannot show people that you have overhead cost and be able to prove to people why they owe you money, you're screwed. You have to have a voice. You have to be able to stand up. And if you struggle at standing up for yourself, that's something that you got to work on. You got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Yeah, you got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. You got to be able to just, show them that, hey, I might be 16 years old, but you're not going to be able to take advantage of me. Absolutely. It's
even at such a young age, man. It's like, man, like I'm asking for $1,000 at 16 years old, but even if I don't care how old you are, it still matters because it does reciprocate into a lot of other ideas into your life as well. And it's like, if I don't stand up for myself here, I'm probably not going to stand up for myself here. So just being able to stand up, stand for your ground, and document every single piece of the journey, of the experience, of the job, will give you that indefinite confidence.
Exactly.
Can we talk about confidence for a quick second? Because confidence is a huge factor that I've seen within a lot of people, and just kind of like within your journey, right? It's been, what, 3 years? 4 years?
Yeah.
Right. So each year, how has the confidence level rose, and how were you able to do that?
So honestly, I have a Instagram account, and I don't post on it a whole lot, but the confidence for me is I started posting yards that we had cut, and I was like, like the edging on this one looks really good. Like the lawnmower did a really good job on this one, and that looks really nice, whatever. And then it started like, oh yeah, we planted these flowers and we did this pattern with them. That looks really cool. Like posting it, seeing what other people say about it. Other people are like, wow, like that looks so good. It's really about the people that are around you, and then the people around you that are like, like that doesn't look good. That like, ask them like, what would make that better? Like, how would you change it? Honestly, confidence is really based off of the people that don't like you too. Asking them, the people that don't like you, for advice on what you could do better, puts them in an uncomfortable situation that they now have to answer for you. And that's honestly, that's the best part, is when people like don't like you and they're like, oh, that looks like crap. Like, well, how would you make it better? And honestly, their answer, you can learn a lot based off of their answer. And that's one thing that I found interesting, is putting people in uncomfortable situations when they don't like you.
I like that.
And learning from it.
I like that. Just kind of like that transparent feedback too.
Exactly.
So like, if they're giving you an answer, then you can stack that proof of like, okay, well, we can do that a little bit better next time. And we can learn. So that like the consistent pursuit of learning and the consistent pursuit of just improving each job allows you to have this indefinite confidence where it just keeps propelling.
And
right?
the really important thing too is that even though this person doesn't like you, a lot of people go into it with a really closed mindset. And I'm the same way with my dad, 100%. My dad will tell me, no, you need to do something like this. And I'll look at him and be like, no, it doesn't work like that. But at the end of the day, you got to keep your mind open, because they might know something that you don't. And while I don't like it when my dad's right, because nobody really likes it when they get told something, but it really is like, they know what they're talking about sometimes. And, you can't just look at it and be like, no, it doesn't work that way, because sometimes it does work that way. You got to be able to understand that not everything you do is correct.
Yeah, there's a book called Principles by Ray Dalio. He's a billionaire, like one of the richest people in the world. And one of the core principles that he has in the book Principles is being radically open-minded and seeing how can we improve each and every single time. And by doing that, by asking the questions, by asking, hey, where can we improve on in this aspect? Then we can fix it the next time and continuously keep improving, and that improvement ultimately results into confidence, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. I have a quote. I speak by it. I said it in the last podcast, but you do not become confident by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but by having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. And those proofs, those jobs that you've been able to accumulate and actually improve on, those are your proofs. And you keep scaling it bigger and bigger and bigger, ultimately resulting in an indefinite piece of confidence, right? So kind of pivoting, that was awesome. Advertising, marketing, what has worked for your business? What have you seen that doesn't work for your business? And what can you give a piece of advice for these guys?
So for me, what does not work for my business and what actually works for you really well, because I'm not a Google guy. I'm not a Instagram guy really. Like that's just, social media is not really my cup of tea. And I'm not good at it. I don't put the effort into it like you do. Like you strive off of social media and Google and all that. For me, the biggest thing is word of mouth. People coming by jobs and being like, oh my gosh, like that looks so good. We want you to come do our yard. Well, here's my business card. Business cards are perfect things. And one thing that I've learned off of my business cards is that, the way your card looks shows how you do as a company.
Interesting. So within that, like how have you negotiated that within that? So I'm sure you've done different types of cards.
I have.
What would you recommend?
So the first card that I ever did is actually probably my best card. It's really clear. The biggest thing is being able to read it. If you put too much stuff on your card, you've screwed up. You need to just have your name, your phone number, maybe 3 or 4 services that you have, the top 3 that you have. Because at the end of the day, you might not list that you do irrigation repair, but that person that you just handed your card to that you just laid mulch for might be like, hey, do you do irrigation repair? And if they don't, so be it. But because there's going to be another job that's down the road. But, for me on this last card, one thing that I did that was really good is that I've been the steel mechanic at our Ace Hardware, and I've been doing that for 2 years. I asked the company if I could put their logo on my business card. That shows that, I'm in with the more professional companies, that sort of stuff. And that's one thing that has helped me with that on that business card, that people are like, oh, Steele, he knows what he's doing with this stuff. But one thing that I really screwed up with, like I mentioned, is that I tried to list every single thing. And by doing that, it took away from my name, my phone number, my email address, my contact information. That took away from that. That made it to where people oversee that stuff and they're like, oh, I'm overwhelmed by this. Like I gotta take a break.
Most definitely. Are you putting your most profitable services as those first 3? What services are you putting on there?
So for me, the biggest thing for me is that I have mowing on there, mulching. Doing mulch is by far the quickest and easiest way to make money in the landscape business. It's a no-brainer. It's cheap if you buy it in bulk, and it doesn't take long to install, and you can charge a lot of money for it. The other things are like, weeding out gardens and stuff like that. I don't really like doing that. That's why I send other people to go do it. It becomes not my problem by that point. I send other people to go do it, and that makes me a lot of money because that takes a lot of time, and I pay those people I pay them good and worth it, but at the end of the day, I can pay them the small amount, and I can charge a lot for that job, and that's just passive income. I can go out and cut yards and be making other money somewhere else.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so cool. So business cards, anything else?
When I first started going door to door, going door to door, getting this one customer. And I actually remember this. I showed up at this guy's door, and I was like, hey, it was like 7 o'clock at night in the winter. And I was like, hey, I started a landscape business, a little bit ago. We're cleaning up leaves right now. And the guy was like, it's 7 o'clock at night. And I said, I know. I can have your yard done in 30 minutes. There will not be a leaf on it. He goes, as long as it's done by 8. And I was like, okay. I said, you can pay me whatever you want. I'm looking for something to do right now, and I'm bored. And I remember I cleaned up this guy's yard, and it looked pristine. It took me 31 minutes. Exactly. He was like, you're a minute late. And I was like, sir, I'm sorry. And but the next day, I was driving by, and he flagged me down. And he's like, man, this looks really good. I don't know how you did this in the dark. And about that time, 2 of his neighbors walked outside, and they were covered in leaves. And they were like, hey, We want y'all to come out and do this.
Yeah.
And we got those 2 by doing this one guy at 7:30 or 7 o'clock at night. And from then, we had 5 more houses down the street.
That's a great way to start, man. It's like, you could pay me whatever. I started off with like literally giving out, hey, I'll do this for free. Just, I'm bored. I'm starting this up. And just pay me whatever, but I'll do a great job for you.
Yeah.
And that ultimate confidence of just at 7 o'clock on a wintry night, where it's probably dark as shit, right?
And it was 40-something degrees. We were freezing.
Right.
Yeah.
And just having that ultimate confidence to just show the results that we can do this quickly, we can do this efficiently, and you can pay whatever. But then you can propel that into starting something huge, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just having that confidence to just go door to door. Pivoting, right? What's your favorite part about the business?
Oh, honestly,
I know that's tricky, right?
It's tricky. There's a lot of things that I like about the business. One of them, for me, is really seeing the customer's face when you're done. You know, we're in Texas. It's 105 to 110 every single day. I mean, at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's 85 degrees, 90. So for me, it's like going out working all day. You're hot. You're tired. You're ready to be done. And, you're sitting there and you're looking at this customer and they're like, wow, like you did a great job. I really appreciate it. Like we're so happy with it. For me, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Seeing that kind of gratification within
exactly.
other individuals and seeing like, hey, my vision came to life, you know, and there's such just a certain aspect of the business. It's like, regardless of the money, regardless of anything like that, we transform this guy's yard, we transform this guy's house into something better.
Exactly.
And that certain type of satisfaction, you can't really see it within other businesses just immediately, right? Because this is like a very visual business.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like you see immediate results.
Oh, yeah.
And people being able to be like, wow, you know, that is, in my opinion, that's the best part about the business as well. What about the worst part about the business?
Also the customers.
Yeah.
You know, dealing with the customers. You know, you're always gonna have that one. You know, our society refers to him as Karen. You're always gonna have Karen. Karen always is gonna find something wrong with everything. I mean, the term "don't fix it if it's not broken." Karen would find something that's broken in the thing that's working just fine.
How do you deal with a Karen?
Honestly, for me, I take it. I look at it like you just kind of got to stand there. You just kind of got to take it. You know, you apologize. You try and make it as right as possible. But at the end of the day, Karen's never going to be happy. And, you know, you learn from that. And maybe, you know, you get cussed out a couple times by Karen. And at the end of the day, it's like, I don't need that as a customer. That one yard that I'm doing for $25, I can go down and get 2 more yards for $35 a piece. And now I'm making more money doing 2 different people's yard in the same amount of time that it took me to do this lady's yard.
No doubt. And just to have that confidence, like, you know what, we can go to other people's yards. We have more business, right? But even like in the midst of them screaming at you.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how are you emotionally reacting towards that?
I don't want to say that I don't care. But I know that by looking at my own work, I know what I have put into it. I know what it looks like. I know how it looks like. It's the industry standard, you know. You know, based off of other yards that you've done, other companies that have done yards around there, you know, you're looking at everybody else's job. Does it fit in? Does it fit? Does it look right? And, you know, for me, it's like if it looks right, there's nothing that I could have done to make it better. You feel like you've put in everything that you have. Maybe that's not the customer for you. You have to be okay with dropping people as customers.
So when you say maybe this isn't the customer for you, who are you? Like, who's your ideal customer?
My ideal customer.
And how do you target them too?
So honestly, my ideal customer is somebody that I get to know on a more personal basis, right? It's somebody that, you know, I can text them and be like, hey, you know, I have, for instance, this year, in the beginning of the year, I had a lot of mechanical problems with mowers and stuff like that. And there was a day that I had to postpone 10 yards to the next day. And I texted that entire route. Everybody on that route was, you know, oh my gosh, this is like, I'm so sorry. Don't worry about it. Tomorrow's perfectly fine. Like those people, the people that understand that life happens, you know, the people that are always like, oh, what can we do to help you? You know, you do a lot for us. What can I do to put back into you besides just, the what I pay you? Like, what else can I do? Those people are the ones that you want. Those are the ones that are going to help you. A lot of times it's not about like it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. The customers that you know, the customers that you build with. And I have 10, 15 customers that I started my company with that are still my customers today, and I know that I could text them for anything, and those people would have my back no matter what.
No doubt. Establishing a personable experience with the people.
Exactly.
And they're more than willing to pay as well, too.
Oh, yeah.
They're more than willing to pay whenever you can start building a relationship with them, building a rapport, building a value experience with them. And then they're starting to ask, hey, how are you? Those are the people that ultimately will pay and become your best friends too, you know? And it's like you could talk about anything to them regardless of any landscaping, anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
But those guys that you can build rapport with, they pay a lot too, you know?
Do. And then for me too, target customer, it's not necessarily to say that I don't want to be in the, lesser neighborhoods, that sort of stuff, because I have no problem going there. Like, business is business.
Right.
Money is money. It doesn't matter where the money came from. I'm making money off of that. But, we live in a nice community. Yeah. And, for me, it's going up to those houses, those huge houses, and being like, look, I can provide this for you. I can do it this amount of times. I can do it for this price. Yeah. And those people are more than willing to pay. If you're going to do a good job and they know that you're going to do a good job, they will fork out the cash for
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. I'm such a huge advocate on finding these types of ideal clients. They call it the target. Your target customers and your Dream 300. They call it the Dream 300. But by having and stacking these clients and they congregate in these wealthier neighborhoods or the people that have the funds for it. Oh, yeah. And you're okay with going to these lesser neighborhoods, but by the service-based business standard, you're probably more likely to get a little bit more job flow and a little bit more cash flow too, finding in these types of clients in those neighborhoods.
Not only that, but then your truck and your trailer is associated with that neighborhood.
Absolutely.
That puts you on another tier.
Right.
And like I said, it doesn't bother me to go over to these other neighborhoods. Like, those people need that service too. They pay, whatever. But that puts you up on a pedestal going into those other neighborhoods because, like, for instance, John Giesick, a Dallas Cowboys player, we do his yard, and people see that and they're like, oh wow, because everybody knows Dallas Cowboys, whether past, present, or future, whatever. And you're like, oh, John Giesick, he hires Brandon Winslow to come out and do his yard. That's who I want doing mine because he trusts him to do that.
You know what would be a great idea is if you got a picture with John and posted it everywhere and be like, hey, like, we did this guy's yard, and then be able to establish rapport with other potential Cowboy players,
Exactly.
and just see like, hey, whoa, this guy's pretty big time, and then you can start to establish that presence with taking pictures with your ideal customers, because these guys love that. They already have established its personable experience.
Exactly.
So you can go out there and take pictures with them, and they'll love it. Yeah. It's something that you could potentially do as well. Pivoting, right? So a unique experience with a customer, something unique that you've experienced before with a customer.
Oh, where do I start with this one? Unique experiences. Probably, honestly, my first job that was $1,000. That was such a unique experience. It just so happened to be my first job that was over $1,000. That one was, for me, that was one of those that was like, wow, I learned a lot from this one. Yeah. Another unique experience is, man, I gotta think about this one.
Take your time, seriously.
Man, there's so many.
There is.
We did a sod job this year, and when we do sod, we take the weeder and we scalp the yard, and basically that just gets rid of all the weeds and all that, and allows you to start on a clean slate. And in doing so, the neighbor had a wrought iron fence, and so we shot all the grass into the neighbor's yard. And I remember it was a really unique experience because I had to walk over and knock on the neighbor's yard, and that neighbor did not speak any English. And I speak very broken Spanish, and trying to communicate with him like, hey, I just shot a whole bunch of crap over on your side of the yard. please let me into your backyard to blow it out. That was something that was really cool for me, because now that guy actually, I cut his yard.
There you go. Yeah. So that's it. Just kind of snowballs,
exactly.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
And so I ended up doing his neighbor's yard, and that job right there, that sod job, was 4 pallets of sod, and I charged $3,000. Yep. I was done with that job in 2 hours. And a pallet of sod, for those of you who don't know, ranges between $275 to $325 depending on the type of grass. Exactly. St. Augustine's always a little bit cheaper, but zoysia is what we were doing. But we did that job in 2 hours, and people just don't realize that, I pay my employees $25 an hour, and as a business owner, you make the rest. Yeah. And so that right there being, $1,200 in overhead right there in 2 hours, yeah. And then you make the rest of that off of that $3,000, and you just gained another customer next door because you had to go.
That's a plus, yeah.
Exactly. It's like, so that would be a really unique experience, because that guy was pissed off and became my customer.
Yeah. What's your biggest job to date?
Ooh, biggest job to date. Oh, you actually helped me with this one.
That was that one, yeah.
Yeah, so the biggest job to date was around 13.7 by the time we got done.
Nice.
And we did the entire yard, front yard, backyard, side yards.
It came out beautiful.
It came out great. And, it was kind of different. I've never done it before, but we rocked the entire front yard.
That was awesome.
Yeah, and so these older ladies, they couldn't get grass to grow. The HOA was all over them. And I'll send you some pictures that you can put in with this. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and so we mulched the flower beds, rocked the yard. We made a trail around the entire yard out of flagstones, so that way the older ladies could walk, because it's harder to walk on the gravel. And then I had one of my old football coaches. He came in and he turfed the backyard for me, and that was really cool because I referred him to that job, and he gave me $500 for referrals, finder's fee, and that was awesome. And then you came out and pressure washed the house, and it came out great. And so that's the biggest job, and that's probably the most satisfying job that I've ever done.
It was pretty cool, man. It's doing jobs over $10,000. Did you ever think that you could get to that in 2021?
Nope.
No. And what was that flip, that script for you to be able to kind of do that?
So, honestly, it was kind of just – actually, I'll start with how I got that job. Like I had mentioned before, I worked at Ace Hardware for 4.5 years as the mechanic there. And right before I quit Ace to do landscape full-time, Rocky, my assistant manager, he really did me a solid, because these ladies were coming in there and they were like, hey, we've got to do something with our yard. Do y'all know anybody? And Rocky was like, yeah, there's a kid that works there. Yeah. And they were like, a kid? And, yeah. So they called me. I showed up that night, and we walked through the entire yard. And originally I had that job quoted at $5,000, okay? And then we added turf. And then we added rock, doing rock down the side down the side of the house. And we added doing a flower bed with bend it board, which was my first time ever doing it with bend it board. And then I had them subcontract, or I had you come out and pressure wash the house. Then I had my football coach come out and turf the backyard. And by the end of it, it had taken me 4 weeks to set all this up, and it took me a week to do the job. And at the end of that job, I had the biggest sigh of relief and was like, wow, because when I tell you I was stressing like you wouldn't believe, it was one of those just like, wow, this is my first job over $10,000, and we're $3,000 over $10,000. Previously, my biggest job was $5,000. Yeah. I almost doubled it, and that for me, like that was like, wow. It
is. It's like, if we can do this, we can do even bigger stuff.
Exactly.
You never know what's out there,
exactly.
And that's a residential job too.
Exactly.
That experience of $10,000, it's kind of different, right? And it makes you kind of look at things a little bit differently, because there's limitless potential.
Oh yeah.
There's limitless potential. There's $100,000 jobs. There's $1 million jobs. And like, that's a stepping stone that you've taken that from previously $5,000. Now we've gone $13,000. We surpassed $10,000. And can you talk about like that experience, like with them handing you the money, right? Like, how was that?
So I remember I was standing there, and the lady came outside, and she was like, well, here's a check for $10,000. And that $10,000 she paid me on the second day of the job because we were going to buy materials and that sort of stuff. And I remember the next day I walked into the bank, and Bobby, my teller, he looked at me and he goes, WTF, man? And I was like, dude, I want $10,000 in cash.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I remember because all those tellers, because I've been going into that bank for 4 years now, and they're like, wow, like, that's awesome. Like, we're so happy for you. You know, like, I've gotten to know them on a personal level, and I remember Bobby handing me $100 bills. And I was like, I looked at it, I was like, wow, thanks, Bobby. And I turned around and I walked out of there.
Yeah, it's weird going to the bank with those substantial amounts of jobs. It's just, you go in there and they're like, a landscaper did this, pressure washer did this. You know, like, who are you? You know, it's like, it's kind of like you just walk back, you do it humbly. Can you talk about just like the humbleness? What would you give a piece of advice just from a humble perspective?
So from a humble perspective, it actually goes into two different things. You don't ever want people to know like what you have. You know, financials, you know, I know that we talk about it on here a little bit, but that's for, you know, the use of other people. It's for educational purposes, you know. But when you're starting your own business, it's beneficial for you to keep that pretty private to yourself.
Absolutely.
And, you know, with that, like, that's where you get humble. Like, that's, you know, knowing that that's not something that you should be talking about with your friends and that sort of stuff. Absolutely. Like, that's where that comes from, because you don't ever want people to know. You really want to be as private as possible, but also willing to help everybody. And, you know, so, I mean, just like I said, walking out of there with $10,000, it was really just like, wow, I have $10,000 in my hand. And I remember getting back to the truck, and Carter was like, wow. I was like, yeah, I know. Wow. And from then on, like, we didn't really talk about it, you know, like, you don't need to talk about what you have, because the way you carry yourself is really who you are. Money doesn't define who you are. You could be as broke as however, but if you're willing to go out and get it, like I said, I started with nothing, you know, so if you're really willing to go out and get it, it's there for you. And you just got to remember where you started.
I completely agree, dude. That's awesome. It's just, I got to give you props. Let's go through a blitz round, all right?
Okay.
So blitz round, basically meaning I'm just going to ask him an assortment of questions, and he's just going to answer at the top of your head, okay? So going to college, what are you most excited about? So
honestly, I'm really excited about meeting new people. You know, like, I have my boys back in high school. They're always going to be my boys, but you know, I'm so excited to go out and meet new people, you know, go out, hang out with friends, party, but more importantly, you know, get a good education and better myself.
Where are you going to college?
Texas State University in San Marcos.
Yeah. And so, that's an interesting school, man. They're notorious for partying.
Oh yeah.
But, you know, you've got your head on straight and everything like that, but enjoy the self, right? You know, I went through college. A lot of people went through college probably watching this stuff, but just being able to keep your head on straight, enjoy those times, because you're not going to be able to live those back, you know, and just make the most of it. And like I was telling you this earlier, but you know, you're very successful for your age. So being able to weed people out, because they're going to be able to see that you got a boat, you got this successful landscaping business, you got money. But being able to weed people out and find the righteous people for you will enable you to grow the most. Sure. And, you know, it would be my injustice to not tell you that on the cameras, even regardless of the cameras, but it'd be my injustice to not tell you that, right? Because there's going to be a lot of people that are fake.
They want to take advantage of you.
And they want to take your energy. They want to take your money. They want to take whatever you got, but just be able to learn and find those types of people. And you're really good at that. What is your morning routine like?
Oh, if you really want to know, my morning routine consists of me waking up at usually 7:50, because we start yards at 8 o'clock. Yeah. I roll out of bed and say, oh, great, this again. And I go out, hook up the trailer, and we get started on our day. And, you know, that's basically it. A lot of people are like, well, don't you shower in the morning? That's honestly, when people ask me about my morning routine, they're like, you don't shower in the morning? And it's like, you know, I like just getting out of bed, because I shower every night. You know, so it's like you shower every night. In the morning you wake up, and I just like jumping straight into it. I don't like having a whole lot of stuff that I do in the morning necessarily. I like rolling out of bed and getting going with my day. I feel like in the morning, you know, like that's some lost time, you know?
Yeah. What's one thing you would tell your younger self?
Save more money. You know, I've made a lot of really dumb purchases. You know, a lot of things that I've learned. For people that are listening to this, saving your money is, especially at a young age, is the best thing that you can possibly do. I mean, yeah, I've made a lot of. On my birthday, I went out and bought a gun, and I'm not gonna say that was a dumb purchase because I don't regret it one bit. But you know, that right there was $1,500, yeah. And you know that right there is $1,500 that I could have had going into college, or you know, John Boat 1.0, the first one that we ever bought it for $900, yeah. And it was kind of like, you know, why did I buy this?
Right.
Especially now that I got a nicer one, whatever, yeah. And you know, it all pans out, you know.
No doubt. What's your favorite hobby, dude?
Honestly, my favorite hobby right now is work. People
excluding work.
Yeah. Oh man, probably. Honestly, going out with the boys. Yeah. I consider that to be a hobby. Yeah. You know, going out, hanging out with friends, like that's something that I do.
The best times, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, you're only 16 through 24 once, yeah. And going and making those memories and doing that sort of stuff is honestly the most fun that you'll have. And for me, you know, all my boys, we're all like rednecks, we're all country boys. Like we enjoy going out and we rope in South Lake, and you know, we'll tear apart a John boat and rewire it, and you know, we might not know exactly what we're doing when we get into it, but by the end of what we do, you just learned a new skill. Yeah. And honestly, I think that learning new skills with your friends is a great thing.
No doubt. What's one sport you played, or multiple sports that you've played, and what's a lesson that you've learned throughout that?
Ooh, honestly, I'll tell you this, baseball. I remember being in situations in junior year, people won't let me forget this, okay? We were playing in Louisville, and I had runner on first, nobody out. It was the last inning of the game, and we were up by 4, okay? I got on the mound, and I got brought in the middle of the inning with a 3-2 count. My first pitch was a ball. I started off awful, right? Your first pitch strike is exactly what every coach preaches to you. Yeah. And I started off with a ball, and that put a runner on first and second. Yeah. You know, after that, no matter what, I was just in my own head. Yeah. I couldn't get out of my own head. I walked the next guy and the next guy, and the guy after that got a hit. And like I said, we were up by 3. We were now down by 1 by the end of that inning. And I remember that. My teammates will never let me forget that. You know, they rag on me all the time for that one time on JV baseball that I blew the game against Louisville. And, you know, for me, like, that was one of those times that it was like, wow, you know, I really got to learn how to control myself on the mound, be more, you know, like, we ball.
Composed, you know? And everything like that.
Exactly. Yeah, people say, you know, don't care about what has happened in the past. Care about what you're going into. You know, that 3-2 count, I have an old baseball coach, Kyle Abbott, and, he used to tell me the best thing to do on the mound, and you can bleep this out, is look at the batter and be like, that guy, you know? And if I had gone in with that attitude right there, I guarantee you I would have been out of that inning, minus that walk, because F that guy. You know, I would have been out of that inning with no runs scored. But because of that one walk, I got down on myself, and you just cannot do that.
It's funny how sports and business and life kind of intertwine.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
You learn so much.
You learn so much, and just even throughout baseball, you can kind of install these into business, right? Mm-hmm. And just going in there and just say, F that, you know, F that guy. We've got this, you know. No matter how big the project is, F it, we've got it, right? And it's the same way, man. I play baseball. That's something that I envy of you too. Is like, man, it's like just keep going, keep progressing, and those sports, they speak so much knowledge into you.
For football too, you know, football is a really physical sport, you know, and you know, I'm 130 pounds, and I remember this last year. Varsity season, you know, I was JV all 3 years, and I made, you know, you're on varsity as a senior, and I finally got my moment to shine, right? And we were playing Plano West. Their quarterback was 230 pounds. He's got 100 and something pounds on me. And I remember running down the field, and I literally remember saying, oh, shit. And next thing I knew, he and I were both on the ground, and I got up, and I was like, damn, that hurt. But right there, you know, looking back on that, the things that cause you pain in life, you know, like stuff gonna happen, but you got to get up from it. And the next play, I went and hit the running back. You know, it's gonna happen.
Right.
You got to deal with it, and
you got to respond
exactly.
immediately.
And you know, playing football like that hurt. Like I remember getting drilled, and that hurt, and having to get up and go back and put my head on another guy in the next play and be like, God, that hurts. You know, but you just got to keep doing it. You got to keep going through it. And that's the same in life.
It's the same way, man. It's literally you'll hear and see, oh man, like I didn't get paid this week. I didn't get the job. I didn't do this. But regardless, we keep moving. We keep going. We keep doing the things that we know that's still gonna work, and do them regardless of how bad it hurts, regardless of how sad you feel, regardless of how happy you feel. You still do the little things every single play, every single day, every single moment. And that's what it takes, you know, that's what it takes to get on the field. That's what it takes to succeed in this business and to succeed in this game of life, right? It's like you have to get up and play even after getting hurt.
It's how you respond. It's not what happened, it's how you respond.
Absolutely. Okay, done with the blitz round.
Okay.
Mistakes to avoid for these guys.
Mistakes to avoid. Don't spend your money on stupid stuff. You know, if you're in a landscaping business and you're just cutting yards, don't go out and buy a chainsaw unless you're trying to expand your business into something. You know, unless you're doing landscaping, you need a chainsaw. Don't go buy a chainsaw. You know, focus, hone in on one thing. Get your business started with one thing. Don't try and be too versatile in the beginning. You know, focus and create your business. Show what you're capable of, and then continue to once you're great at one thing, then you can start expanding. But you have to be good at the things that you start with, or else you can't be good at everything. You know, everybody says, you know, it's good to master one thing before you move on. And I don't get me wrong, I truly believe that. I think that you need to be the best that you can be at something before you go try and do something else. But at the same time, it's also good that once you've gotten to a certain level of that thing, go try to expand. Go try to, because you never know what else there is out there. And, you know, one of my favorite quotes is a master of all trade. I'm sorry. A jack of all trade is a master of none, but better than a master of one. Okay, which is true. You know, I'm good at fixing my own equipment. I'm good at, you know, doing the landscaping stuff, that sort of stuff. And those are some things like I can rewire stuff. You know, it's that sort of like blue collar knowledge, we'll call it. And you know, that's one thing for me that is, you know, really helped me is being super versatile. But you can't be versatile at one thing. You can't be versatile until you know what you need to know to be able to expand.
Absolutely.
So don't try to expand too quickly, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
That's awesome. I'm not going to even say anything about that because I completely agree, dude. Best hack for the audience. Okay, so something that they can install into their business or something that they're trying to start. What's a hack?
Honestly, the hack is be super personable with your clients. If you can't go and have a personal conversation with your clients, go try and talk to them. Learn about them on a personal level, you know. Try to figure out who they are. And by figuring out who your clients are, that's going to open up doors to success. You know, for instance, I have one of my clients, and he works in the concrete business. And my major in college is concrete industry management, you know, trucking, aggregate sales, concrete science, all that sort of stuff. And that guy, I guarantee you, if I graduate or when I graduate college, if I'm looking for a job and I don't have one coming out of college, I guarantee you I can call that guy and be like, hey, I'm looking for a job. Who can you put me in contact with to get me a job? And that guy will help me because I've known him on a personal level now. Yeah, the more personable that you can relate to the customer and you have that personal experience, they're more than willing to go out there and do stuff for you. Exactly. Right? And go out there and pursue stuff for you because that you've been battery exhausted. Let's see if these are still running real quick. These are still running. This is still running. Okay. We'll just use these two. Okay. Cool. But the more personable that you can relate to these people, the more value that you can give to these guys are going. I believe that more value exchanges result into greater value exchanges. So the more value that you can give these guys through a preceded area and elongated term, they're more than willing to give out a complete hand. For you know. Closing for the audience.
what would you recommend a piece of advice?
A piece of advice would be, you know, when the times get hard, there's always something that you can be doing to make it better. You know, you can start out with nothing and go make something out of nothing. You know, nothing is not something like anything that you do. Like, there's always something that you can, you know, expand on, build on. You know, everybody's got a skill. There's nobody in this world that just doesn't know anything about something. Everybody knows something. So go expand off of what you already know and make something out of it.
That's Brandon Wenzel for you guys. I appreciate you, dude, so much. Man, that was awesome. If you guys got a ton of value out of this, as I did, just smash the subscribe button, like button, whatever you want to do. You can comment, and I'll reply. But, man, I appreciate you.
Of course, thank you for having
this,
me.
man. You know,
I appreciate
this
it.
is you're about to go into a stepping stone with your life, and you're going to do great, man. And I really, really applaud you for what you've done right now. You've got even more in the tank, and just keep leveling up, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You know, I texted you the other day when you asked me to do this, and I was like, dude, like, you're somebody I look up to. Like, I'm so excited for this. And, you know, I'm so happy that, you know, we met and all that sort of good stuff. So,
man, dude, I envy you, man. So keep going. I appreciate you being on.
Yes, sir, of course.
And that was awesome.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. Peace.